Hi friends, this is the eNews for Wednesday, October 26th, and I hope that you are doing well. I wanted to let you know that this coming Sunday, October 30th, we will celebrate Reformation Day, which is actually October 31st. That was the day that Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg, Germany, and it began the movement called Reformation. So we celebrate that this coming Sunday, and we also will observe the sacrament of baptism on behalf of Delaney Dorner. The following Sunday, November 6th, the first Sunday of November, we will celebrate All Saints' Day. We'll observe the Lord's Supper, being the first Sunday of the month, and we will remember all of the members of our congregation who have died in this past year. It's always a really special worship service, and I hope that you'll be able to come and join us in person if possible. I wanted to share briefly my take on stewardship, because this week you'll be getting a letter, and I'm going to introduce Jeff Weber in just a moment. But this is where I begin when I start thinking about stewardship. And stewardship is simply the management of God's possessions and gifts that He's given to us. And I always begin with Psalm 24:1. It says, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For He founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers." For me, that just reminds me that everything belongs to God. He's the Creator. There's nothing I have that is mine that hasn't been given to me or provided for me by God. And so I am but a steward of God's creation in the earth sense, a steward of the gifts that God's given to me personally, a steward of the graces that I have known in life. And so that's how I begin thinking about stewardship. The second passage I wanted to read is from 1 Peter 4. It says, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ." So as you think about stewardship in these days, I invite you to consider all of that and hope that you will prayerfully think how you are managing God's resources for His glory in these days. So let me introduce to you Elder Jeff Weber, who is chair of the Finance Committee. He'll introduce himself and tell you a little bit more about what's going to happen.
Thank you, Dirk, for the introduction, and it's a privilege to have the opportunity to talk to everyone today. As Dirk said, my name is Jeff Weber, an elder here with the church. I've been a member since 2008, and my wife's been a lifetime member here of Elephant Wild, and I just appreciate the opportunity to help think through this year's stewardship campaign. As Dirk noted, everyone this week will receive an envelope and a letter from the church which contains an estimate of giving card and a letter and a return envelope that you can use to send in information of what you've put together for your estimate for 2023. Stewardship is one of those processes that we at the church go through every year. What we do, we don't create a budget and a plan for the next year until we've inquired of members and regular attendees and people that give to this organization money so that we understand and have an estimate. So first, thank you for the money you've been giving throughout the years. Many of our lifelong members have been steady givers to the mission here at Elephant Wild. In the letter, I highlight three things that you can give to. We'd ask you to consider each one of them as a component of your estimate to giving. The first is the mission program. We don't fund our mission program except for those dollars that are specifically designated by you, our congregation. So we'd ask that you consider how you give. This past year we had a great season of giving, and we've continued to influence a lot of people around the world through that program. The second one is the capital campaign. We don't have a campaign going, but we continue to allocate money to the ongoing physical environment of the church for those investments that we need to add to or maintain above normal operating for the church building and all the other components. This past year, we used money from the capital account to fund the improvements in the kitchen. We're working on some improvements in one of the houses we own. So we're excited to continue to do that, and it's an important part of the overall ministry. The third part of the letter and the estimate of giving is your operating committee or operating budget estimate. The operating budget is really the core component of our overall budget. It's how we pay for all the salaries of our pastors and staff, and we also pay for heating and cooling and all the maintenance things that go into the operation of a church. It's an important and critical element of our overall ministry and enables to do many of the wonderful things that the pastors, the family, and all of us as members contribute, not only to the internal church community, but the community at large around us here in Glenshaw and Shaler. As you all know for yourselves, those elements of cost, from payroll to heating and utility and everything else, has been going up this past year. So needless to say, our environment and our costs are going up as well. We all recognize that. The church does a really good job between the elders and the various committees and trustees to manage those costs, but we just have the reality of we're continuing to do that. So we'd ask for your consideration as you go through the process of just thinking what your obligation or your commitment may be. Just in a personal note, this is one of those topics that we all sit and think, and I write in the letter that it really should be from a joyful standpoint of our opportunity to give back to God, much of what Dirk highlighted just a moment ago. This morning I was reading an email from a pastor that was talking about he grew up in a Christian family and heard often Acts 20:35, that it's better to give than to receive. And the pastor noted in the letter that clearly as a child he didn't really understand that, and he thought that can't be right. I myself grew up in a Christian family. My dad was really specific, required me as a young person and even in junior high school to give money to the church from the little bit of money that I earned. At the time, I didn't necessarily appreciate it or understand it, but through the example of so many others in my own family, in various relationships that I've had through the years, you really do begin to see the value. We here at Elf and Wild are really fortunate that we've had over 100 years of people that have been committed to Elf and Wild Church and our mission, and have had a significant impact on the families here and the community. So maybe as you're going through this process with your family, with yourself, really just think to how can you give out of joy, knowing that God is always generous in providing for our individual needs. After all, He's given us the greatest gift of all, the gift of salvation through His Son, Jesus Christ. So thank you. We'd ask that you submit your cards before November 20th to assist in our planning. You can put them in the offering during services. You can mail them into the church, or you could bring them to the church office. So in anticipation, thank you very much. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.